The dust didn't settle in Copper Hollow anymore. It just moved from one corner to another, restless and dirty, like everything else in that godforsaken town. Elias Vorn knew that kind of dust. He'd eaten it in 4 territories, slept in it across 2 mountain ranges, and tasted it in his teeth every morning for the last 16 years. The kind that got into your lungs and stayed there, gritty reminder that you were still breathing when you had no right to be. His horse, a paint mare too old to be pretty, but too stubborn to quit, picked her way down the canyon trail as the sun cracked open against the eastern ridge. Below them, Copper Hollow sprawled like a drunk who'd passed out in his own vomit. Crooked buildings, sagging porches, a main street that looked like it was trying to run away from itself. Elias had seen 100 towns like this. Border towns, forgotten towns, places where the law ended and something meaner took over. He shifted in the saddle, felt the familiar ache in his left hip where a Comanche arrow had kissed bone 12 years back. The pain was good, kept him focused, reminded him he was still alive, still hunting. The mare snorted, ears flicking toward town. She'd learned to read him over the years, knew when he was close to something, could probably smell the violence coming before he could. "Easy, girl," Elias said. His voice came out rough, underused. He didn't talk much these days, hadn't had reason to. They descended slowly, no rush. 16 years of tracking, he'd learned that the last mile was just as important as the first 1,000. You don't sprint to the finish when the finish has guns. The trail widened as they hit the valley floor. Elias could see the town clearer now. One main street running north to south, maybe 20 buildings total. Saloon on the east side. He could tell by the false front trying too hard to look respectable. General store across from it. What looked like a bank, though he doubted it held anything worth robbing anymore. Places like this were picked clean long before men like him showed up. A woman appeared on a side street carrying a basket. She saw him coming and froze like a deer. Then she turned and hurried away, head down, basket clutched to her chest. That told Elias everything he needed to know about Copper Hollow. Fear had set up shop here, made itself comfortable. He rode past a burned-out building, just a black skeleton of beams and a stone chimney standing like a grave marker. Recent fire. Within the month, the smell of char still hung in the air, mixing with the dust. 2 men stood outside the general store, watching him approach. Young, maybe 25, both wearing guns tied down low, the way men do when they want you to notice, the way men do when they've never actually had to draw fast enough to save their lives. Elias didn't look at them directly. That was another thing 16 years had taught him. Never look at a man like you're measuring him. Just let your eyes pass over him like he's furniture. The mare's hooves sounded too loud on the hard-packed dirt. Each step an announcement. He could feel the town watching now, curtains moving in windows, doors cracking open then closing quick. The 2 men outside the general store had straightened up, hands drifting toward their gun belts. Elias rode past them without a word. "Hey, old-timer," one of them called out. "You lost?" Elias kept riding. The saloon was just ahead. He could hear piano music, badly played, laughter that sounded forced. "I'm talking to you, Grandpa," the voice came again, sharper this time. The mare's ears went back. She didn't like loud voices any more than Elias did. He pulled up at the hitching post outside the saloon, took his time dismounting. His left leg didn't want to cooperate at first. It never did after a long ride. He had to use both hands on the saddle horn to steady himself. Behind him, he heard boots on wood. The 2 men had followed him. "You deaf, old man?" Elias looped the reins around the post, checked the knot twice. The mare needed water, but that could wait. First he needed whiskey and information, in that order. He turned slowly, letting his body creak the way old bodies do. Let them see the gray in his beard, the lines around his eyes, the slight hitch in his step as he moved toward the saloon steps. The 2 men stood shoulder to shoulder now, blocking his path. Up close, they looked even younger. Soft hands, clean fingernails. Boys playing dress-up in their daddy's gun belts. "This is Mr. Calder's town," the taller one said. He had a thin mustache that looked like he'd drawn it on with a burned stick. "Mr. Calder likes to know who's visiting." "That right?" Elias said. Not a question. "That's right." The shorter one grinned, showing teeth that had seen better years. "So maybe you should introduce yourself. Show some respect." Elias looked at them for a long moment. Really looked this time. Saw the cheap swagger, the borrowed confidence. saw the fear underneath, the kind of fear that makes men cruel because they've never learned any other way to feel strong. "Name's Vorn," he said quietly. "I'm here for a drink." "Well, Mr. Vorn," Mustache said, drawing out the name like it was funny, "maybe Mr. Calder would like to buy you that drink. Have a conversation." "Don't need conversation." "Wasn't asking what you need, Grandpa." The shorter one laughed at that, a high yipping sound that hurt Elias's ears. "I'll take my chances on my own," Elias said, and started up the steps. A hand grabbed his shoulder. It wasn't a hard grab, just firm enough to stop him, firm enough to say, "We're in charge here." Elias looked down at the hand, then up at Mustache's face. The young man was grinning now, pleased with himself. "Maybe you didn't hear me, old-timer, Mr. Calder." Elias moved, not fast. Not the way he used to move, back when his joints didn't sound like a wagon wheel that needed grease, but efficient, economical. He caught the wrist, twisted just enough to break the grip, and in the same motion drove his elbow up into the soft spot under Mustache's ribs. Not hard enough to break anything, just hard enough to empty the air out of his lungs and drop him to one knee. The whole thing took maybe 2 seconds. The shorter one went for his gun, of course he did, they always did, but Elias already had his own Colt out, hammerback, barrel pointed at the kid's belly button. "Don't," Elias said. The kid froze, hand halfway to his holster. Mustache was on the ground now, gasping like a fish on a dock. His face had gone red, then purple, then that grayish color that comes when a man can't quite remember how breathing works. "Jesus," the shorter one whispered. His hand was trembling. "Jesus, mister, you didn't what?" Elias asked. His gun never wavered. Didn't mean to put hands on a stranger? Didn't mean to tell him who he could talk to? The piano music inside the saloon had stopped. The whole town had gone quiet, that kind of quiet that comes right before a storm breaks. Elias looked at the kid, really just a kid, maybe 19, and saw the terror in his eyes. Saw the moment the bravado cracked and fell away, leaving nothing but a scared boy who'd made a mistake. "Go find your boss," Elias said. "Tell him Elias Vorn is in town. Tell him I'm here for Cole Riker." The name landed like a stone in still water. The kid's eyes went wide. "Riker, you can't. Mr. Calder won't." "Tell him," Elias said again. He lowered the Colt slowly, deliberately, holstered it. "Then stay out of my way." He stepped over Mustache, who was still trying to remember how lungs worked, and pushed through the saloon doors. The inside was exactly what he expected. Low ceiling, stale air thick with tobacco smoke and spilled beer. Maybe 15 men scattered around the room, all of them staring at him now. Barkeep behind the counter, round-faced and sweating. 3 women in tired dresses working the room, their smiles painted on and starting to crack. Elias walked to the bar, his boots loud on the wooden floor. Every eye in the room followed him. "Whiskey," he said to the barkeep. "Leave the bottle." The barkeep looked nervous. He was the kind of man who'd spent his whole life trying not to make waves, trying not to be noticed. The kind who survived by reading the temperature in a room and adjusting accordingly. Right now, the temperature was dropping fast. "Mister," the barkeep said quietly, "I don't want any trouble." "Then pour the whiskey." The barkeep poured. His hand shook just enough to make the bottle rattle against the glass. Elias threw back the first shot, felt it burn down his throat, and spread warmth through his chest. Good whiskey. Not great, but good. He poured another. Behind him, the saloon doors swung open. Boots on the floor. Multiple sets. "You're making a mistake, old man." The voice was different from the 2 outside. Older. Harder. A voice that had given orders and watched men die. Elias didn't turn around. He drank his second shot, poured a third. "My name is Jack Sutter," the voice continued. "I'm Mr. Calder's second. You just put hands on 2 of his men." "They put hands on me first," Elias said to his glass. "I was polite about it." Someone laughed, a short, bitter sound that cut off quick when Sutter probably looked at him. "Polite." Sutter's voice moved closer. "You call that polite?" "Could have broke his arm," Elias said. "Didn't. That's polite where I come from." He could sense Sutter now, maybe 5 feet behind him and to the left. 3 other men with him, spread out. Professionals, or at least professional enough. They'd know how to work as a unit, how to cover angles. Elias kept his eyes on the mirror behind the bar. It was cracked and dirty, but he could see enough. Sutter was a big man, 6'2" maybe, broad shoulders, face like a hatchet, the kind of face that looked mean even when it was smiling. The three with him were cut from the same cloth. Hard men, not kids playing dress-up. "You're looking for Cole Riker," Sutter said. "That's right." "Why?" Elias finally turned around, slowly. Let them see his face, the lines around his eyes, the gray in his beard. Let them think what they wanted to think. "That's between me and Riker. Everything in this town is between Mr. Calder and whoever Mr. Calder says it's between." Sutter's hand rested on his gun belt, casual but ready. "Cole Riker rides with us. That makes him Mr. Calder's business. Tell Calder I'll pay for the conversation. Fair price." "There is no price. Riker's not for sale." Elias nodded like that made sense, like he'd expected that answer. "Then I'll ask again," he said. Politely, one of Sutter's men, a lean fellow with a knife scar across his cheek, snorted. "You ain't hearing right, old man. The boss said—" "I heard him." Elias's voice didn't rise, but something in it changed, went flat, empty. The kind of tone that raises hair on the back of necks. "Just wanted to make sure he heard me." The temperature in the room dropped another 10 degrees. Sutter's jaw tightened. His eyes went hard, calculating. Elias could see him weighing options, measuring risks, wondering if this old man was stupid or crazy or something worse. "You've got sand, I'll give you that," Sutter said finally. "But sand doesn't stop bullets. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and you just made an enemy of the most powerful man in 3 territories. 4, one of the men at a corner table called out. "Don't forget Silverton, Jack." Sutter's eyes never left Elias. 4 territories. Rafe Calder owns everything from here to the Badlands. Every town, every trail, every watering hole. Men who cross him don't live long enough to regret it. Elias picked up his glass, studied the amber liquid in the dim light. 16 years ago, he said quietly, men burned my family alive. My wife, my daughter, my son, who was 8 years old and liked to catch frogs in the creek. The room went silent. Even the breathing seemed to stop. I've spent every day since then hunting the men responsible, Elias continued. His voice was calm, almost gentle. Found them one by one. Took my time. Made sure each one knew why he was dying. He drank the whiskey, set the glass down carefully. Got through 7 of them. Cole Riker is the 8th. His eyes lifted to meet Sutter's. Also the last. Jesus Christ, someone whispered. Sutter's face had gone pale under his tan. You're him. You're the ghost they talk about. The man from... I'm not a ghost, Elias said. Just old and patient. And stupid, Sutter said. But there was less conviction in it now. You think you can just walk in here and... Already walked in. Already ass nice. Now I'm telling you. Elias's hand moved to his gun belt, not threatening, just resting there. You've got until sunrise tomorrow. Hand over Riker, or I'll come take him. Sutter laughed, but it sounded forced. You and what army, old man? Don't need an army. Just need you to be smart enough to know when to fold. The only thing I know, Sutter said, his voice hardening again, is that you just signed your own death warrant. He turned to his men. Spread the word. This fool wants to die. Let's accommodate him. They left in a group, boots loud on the floor. The doors swung behind them, squeaking on rusted hinges. The saloon stayed quiet for a long moment. Then the piano player, an old black man with hands that shook from too much drink, started playing again. Slow, mournful. The barkeep leaned across the counter, his voice barely above a whisper. Mister, you need to leave. Now. Tonight. Calder's going to come for you with everything he's got. I know. Then why? Because Riker's here. And I made a promise. To who? Elias looked at him. Through him. Saw past the bar, past the town, back 16 years to a homestead burning against the night sky. Heard screams that never quite faded, saw a little boy's face pressed against a window, mouth open in a silent cry that Elias heard every night in his sleep. To the dead, he said simply. The barkeep's face went soft with understanding, or maybe pity, hard to tell the difference sometimes. There's a boarding house 2 streets over, he said quietly. Mrs. Chen runs it. Tell her Tommy sent you. She'll give you a room, no questions. Appreciate it. Don't appreciate it too much. Might be your last bed. Elias poured one more drink, raised it to the barkeep. Then I'd better enjoy it. He left money on the bar, more than the whiskey cost, because Tommy seemed like a decent man trying to survive in an indecent place, and walked out into the afternoon sun. The street was busier now, people moving with purpose, not the aimless drift of earlier. Word was spreading. The old man in the saloon, the challenge, the name Cole Riker. Elias untied his mare, led her down the street toward what he hoped was a stable. She needed water, grain, a rub-down. If he was going to die tomorrow, least he could do was make sure the horse was comfortable. A child watched him from a doorway. Little girl, maybe 6, with dark eyes and a smudged face. She held a corn-husk doll, clutched tight to her chest. Elias nodded to her. She didn't nod back, just stared with that solemn intensity children have when they're trying to understand something their minds can't quite grasp. Her mother appeared behind her, snatched her up quick, and disappeared back inside. The door slammed shut. The stable was at the south end of town, a sagging structure that looked like it was held up by habit more than nails. A young Mexican boy was mucking stalls, skinny arms working a pitchfork bigger than he was. "Help you, senor?" His English was good, barely accented. "Need to board my horse. 3 days, maybe 4. The boy looked at the mare, then at Elias. Something passed across his face. Recognition, maybe. Or just the kind of knowing that comes from living in a place where violence is always waiting right around the corner. $3, he said. Includes grain and water. Extra $1 for a rub-down. Give her the rub-down. And an extra helping of grain. Si, senor. Elias paid him, added an extra $1 because the kid looked hungry. The boy's eyes went wide. "This is too much, senor. Keep it." "But you take care of her," Elias said, running his hand down the mare's neck one last time. "She's been good to me. Deserves better than I can give her right now." The boy understood. Elias could see it in his eyes. "What's her name?" the boy asked quietly. Elias realized he'd never actually named her. 16 years, and he'd never bothered. She'd just been the horse, or girl. He'd kept his distance from things that could hurt him, things he could lose. "Don't have one," he admitted. The boy looked sad at that, the way only children can look sad about unnamed things. "I'll call her Luna," he said, for the moon marking on her face. Luna. Elias tried it out. It fit. "That's good. That's real good." He left before his throat could tighten any more. Mrs. Chen's boarding house was exactly where Tommy said it would be. A narrow 2-story building squeezed between a closed-up assay office and what might have once been a dress shop. The paint was peeling, the porch sagged, but the windows were clean and there were flowers in boxes, real flowers, struggling but alive. Mrs. Chen herself answered his knock. She was maybe 60, Chinese, with iron gray hair pulled back severe and eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything. "Tommy sent me," Elias said. "Need a room." She looked him up and down, taking inventory. Her gaze lingered on his gun, his boots, the dust on his coat. "You're the one," she said. Not a question. "Yes, ma'am." "You're going to get yourself killed." "Probably." She studied his face for another moment, then stepped back. $2 a night, breakfast included. Dinner is extra. No guns at the table, no drinking in the rooms, no whores. Fair enough. Room 3, top of the stairs, end of the hall. Bed's not much, but it's clean. She took his money, handed him a key on a piece of string. "Mr. Vaughan," she said as he started up the stairs. He turned. "My husband was a good man. Ran a business here, employed people. Paid his taxes. Calder's men burned it down because he wouldn't pay protection." Her voice was steady, but there was steel underneath. "Beat him in the street. He died 3 days later." "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just kill them all." She turned and walked back into her kitchen, leaving Elias standing on the stairs with those words hanging in the air. Room 3 was what she'd promised. Small, clean, sparse. A narrow bed, a washstand, 1 chair. Window overlooking the street. Elias set his saddlebags on the floor, his rifle against the wall. Checked the window. Open smooth, no squeaking. Good. Always good to have a second way out. He sat on the bed, felt the springs protest under his weight, pulled off his boots. His feet ached, swollen and angry. Getting old was just one indignity after another. Outside, the sun was starting to drop toward the western hills, golden light slanting across the street, painting everything the color of old photographs. Elias could see people moving down there, could see them looking up at this building, pointing. The word had spread all the way through town now. The old man who challenged Calder, the ghost who came for revenge. He lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling, water stains like continents on a map. He traced them with his eyes, let his mind drift. Sarah's face came to him first, always did. The way she'd looked that last morning, flour on her cheek from making biscuits. The way she'd laughed when Thomas, their son, their beautiful boy, had tried to sneak extra jam. Rebecca, their daughter, 12 years old, starting to look like her mother, starting to understand the world wasn't all sunshine and easy answers. He'd been in town that day, buying supplies, talking with the sheriff about a horse he wanted to buy. Stupid, ordinary things. Came back to smoke and screams. Found them in the bedroom where they'd tried to hide. Found them burned so badly he'd had to identify them by their heights, by the wedding ring melted to Sarah's finger bone. Found the gang's calling card nailed to the fence post. The laughing skull. Rafe Calder's mark, though Calder himself had been 300 miles away when it happened. He just gave the orders. Sent his men. Cole Riker had been one of those men. The one who struck the match, according to the drunken Missouri, who talked before Elias put a bullet in his brain. 16 years hunting. 16 years bleeding out the poison one drop at a time. And now he was here. Last name on the list. Last face to kill. Then what? The question had haunted him for months now. What happened after revenge? What did a man do when the only thing keeping him alive was finally done? He didn't have an answer. Footsteps in the hall pulled him back. Heavy. Multiple sets. Elias rolled off the bed, grabbed his Colt, and moved to the side of the door in one smooth motion. His hip screamed in protest, but he ignored it. A knock. Firm but not aggressive. "Mr. Vorn?" A woman's voice. "I brought you dinner." He waited. Listened. Could hear breathing on the other side, more than one person. "Mrs. Chen sent me," the voice continued. "Said you might be hungry." Elias moved to the window, looked down at the street. No unusual movement. No one obviously watching. He went back to the door, opened it a crack, gun held low. A young woman stood there with a tray. Maybe 25, Mexican, with long dark hair and a nervous smile. Behind her, keeping a respectful distance, was the boy from the stable. "I'm Maria," she said. "This is my brother, Diego." Elias looked at Diego. The boy met his eyes, gave a small nod. "Luna's doing good, senor. Ate all her grain." Despite everything, Elias almost smiled. "That's good to hear." He took the tray from Maria. Stew, bread, coffee. The smell made his stomach remember it hadn't eaten since morning. "Thank you," he said. Maria didn't leave. She stood there, twisting her hands together, clearly wanting to say something. "Ma'am?" Elias prompted. "My father," she said quietly. "He stood up to Calder's men 2 years ago. She stopped, swallowed. "They made an example of him." "I'm sorry." "Everyone's sorry. Nobody does anything." Her eyes were fierce now. "You're doing something." "I'm doing something stupid." "No." She shook her head. "You're doing what someone should have done years ago. You're showing them we don't have to be afraid." "Fear keeps people alive," Elias said. "Fear without hope is just slavery." She said it like she'd been thinking about it for a long time. "You gave us hope today, when you stood up to Sutter, when you said that name. That hope might get you killed. We're already dying, just slowly." She grabbed Diego's hand. At least now maybe we remember what it feels like to fight." They left before Elias could respond. He closed the door, set the tray on the small table, and stared at the stew. His appetite had vanished. He'd never meant to be anyone's hope. Never wanted that weight. He was just a man settling accounts, balancing books written in blood. But hope was a dangerous thing. Once you gave it to people, they started believing, started acting, started dying for it. He ate the stew because his body needed fuel, drank the coffee because morning would come whether he slept or not. Then he cleaned his guns, the Colt, the backup piece in his boot, the rifle. Checked his ammunition, counted his bullets like a miser counting coins. 23 rounds for the Colt, 15 for the rifle, 5 for the backup, If he needed more than that, he was probably already dead. Night came down hard and fast, the way it does in the territories. One minute the sky was purple, the next it was black velvet studded with stars that looked close enough to touch. Elias sat in the chair by the window, watching the street, watching the saloon across the way, light spilling from its windows, piano music drifting out. Around 10, riders came in, 6 of them, moving as a unit. They tied up outside the saloon, went inside. 15 minutes later, more riders. Then more. Calder was gathering his forces. At midnight, a different kind of movement caught Elias's eye. A man, alone, moving quickly down the side street. Then another, then 3 more. Townspeople, leaving their homes, carrying bundles, leading children. Running. Smart ones, Elias thought. The ones who knew what was coming. By 2 in the morning, maybe a dozen families had slipped out of town. Not many, but enough. Enough to matter. Elias dozed in the chair, his hand on his gun, his mind half in the present and half in the past. He dreamed of fire. Always fire. Always the same dream. But this time, something was different. This time, when he ran toward the burning house, he wasn't alone. Behind him, he could sense others, townspeople, strangers, all running toward the flames instead of away. He woke with a start, heart pounding. The sky outside was starting to lighten. Not sunrise yet, but close. That gray pre-dawn light that makes everything look like a photograph. Elias stood, worked the kinks out of his back, washed his face in the basin. The water was cold, shocking. He loaded his guns, checked them again. Strapped on his gun belt, adjusted it until it sat right. Put the backup piece in his boot. Slung the rifle over his shoulder. Looked at himself in the small mirror over the washstand. An old man looked back. Lined face, gray beard, eyes that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. But underneath the age, underneath the wear, something harder, something that had been forged in fire and tempered in blood. He'd come here to kill a man, to finish what started 16 years ago. But somewhere between the saloon and this moment, it had become something else, become bigger. These people, Maria and Diego, Mrs. Chen, Tommy the barkeep, the family slipping away in the night, they'd made him into a symbol, a promise, a chance. He couldn't carry that weight, didn't want it, but he couldn't put it down either. Damn it, he said to his reflection. He went downstairs. Mrs. Chen was in the kitchen, making coffee. She didn't seem surprised to see him up so early. "Breakfast?" she asked. "No, thank you, ma'am." She poured him coffee anyway, strong and black. "My husband's name was James," she said, not looking at him. "James Chen. People thought it was funny, Chinese man with an American name, but he was proud of it. Proud to be here. Thought this country meant something." Elias drank his coffee. Let her talk. He believed in law, order, civilization. Her hands moved methodically, cutting bread. Believed if you worked hard, played fair, you'd be left alone to live your life. He was wrong, Elias said quietly. Yes. She set down the knife. But he wasn't wrong to believe it. He was wrong to think belief was enough. She turned to face him finally. "I don't believe in law anymore, Mr. Vaughan. Don't believe in civilization. Don't believe someone else is coming to save us." She picked up a small cloth bundle, handed it to him. "But I believe in you." Inside was food, bread, dried meat, an apple. "For after," she said. "Win or lose. If I lose, I won't need it. Then someone else will. Someone who remembers." He took the bundle, tucked it in his coat. "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. Thank you, Mr. Vaughan, for reminding us we're not dead yet." He left through the back door into the alley that smelled of garbage and piss. The sky was lighter now, stars fading, the town was quiet. Waiting. Elias checked his guns one more time, worked his shoulders, felt his heart beating steady and slow. 16 years, 7 men dead, 1 name left. The sun broke over the eastern ridge, painting the street gold. Elias Vaughan stepped out of the alley and into the light. It was time. The street stretched out before him like an empty stage waiting for blood. Elias walked slow, keeping to the middle of the road where the dirt was packed hardest. His boots made almost no sound. Behind him, the sun climbed higher, throwing his shadow long and thin across the ground like a dark promise. No one else was out. The whole town held its breath. He could feel eyes on him, though. Behind every window, every crack in every door, people watching, waiting to see if the old man was crazy or brave or just ready to die. Maybe all three. The saloon doors were closed. That was unusual. Saloons in towns like this never closed, ran day and night because drinking was the only thing that made the fear bearable. But today they were closed. Elias stopped about 50 yards from the saloon, close enough to be seen clearly, far enough to have room to move. His hip ached, his lower back felt like someone had driven railroad spikes into it. His trigger finger, the right index that had killed 7 men in 16 years, had a tremor in it this morning that hadn't been there yesterday. Getting old was a cruel joke. Your mind still remembered being fast, being strong. Your body just forgot how to cooperate. He waited. The sun warmed his shoulders. A breeze kicked up dust devils that danced across the street like drunken ghosts. Somewhere, a dog barked. 3 sharp sounds that cut the silence and then stopped abruptly. Still nothing. Elias had learned patience the hard way. Learned it tracking a man across 200 miles of desert. Learned it waiting 3 days outside a whorehouse for a target to emerge. Learned it from his wife, who used to say that good things came to those who didn't rush them. Sarah had been wrong about a lot of things, but not that. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, the saloon doors opened. Sutter came out first, moving with that controlled swagger of a man who knew how to fight and had done it enough times to be casual about it. He stepped to the side, hand resting on his gun belt. Then 3 more men. Then 5. Then 10. They kept coming, fanning out across the width of the street, forming a line like soldiers on a battlefield, hard men with hard faces. Men who'd killed before and would kill again without losing sleep. Elias counted. 17 in total. No, 18. One more slipping out a side door of the general store, trying to get an angle. 18 to 1. He'd faced worse odds. Not often, but he'd faced them. The line settled. Sutter stood in the middle, flanked by his best. To his right, a tall man with a scarred face and dead eyes. To his left, someone Elias recognized, Pete Holloway, wanted in 3 territories for murder and rape, a man who enjoyed his work too much. "You came," Sutter called out. His voice carried clear in the morning air. "Didn't think you would." "I said I would." "Saying and doing are different things." "Not to me," Elias said. Sutter smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the stupidest. Haven't decided which. Don't matter much either way." "No, I suppose it doesn't." Sutter shifted his weight, hand still on his gun. "Last chance, old man. Ride out. Forget Riker. Forget this whole damn fool thing. We'll let you go. You have my word." "Your word worth anything?" "More than yours is about to be." Elias looked past Sutter, scanning the faces behind him. Young and old, scared and eager. Some looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. Some looked like they'd been waiting for this their whole lives. But no Riker. No sign of the man he'd come for. "Where is he?" Elias asked. "Where's who?" "Don't play games. Where's Cole Riker?" Sutter's smile widened. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere you'll never reach him. You want him? You go through us. All of us." "That the deal?" "That's the deal." Elias nodded slowly, like he was thinking it over, like he was weighing his options and realizing how badly he'd miscalculated. Let them think that. "Calder's not here either," he said. "All this muscle, and the boss hides." That hit a nerve. He could see it in the way Sutter's jaw tightened, the way a few of the men behind him shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Calder doesn't need to be here," Sutter said, but there was an edge in his voice now. "He's got men to handle problems like you." "Problems." Elias tasted the word. "That what I am?" "That's what you were. What you are now is a corpse that ain't laid down yet." Behind Sutter, one of the younger men laughed nervously. Someone told him to shut up. Elias could feel the tension ratcheting tighter, could feel the moment approaching, that split second before everything went to hell and men started dying. He'd been in this moment before, knew it intimately, knew the way time seemed to slow down, the way your vision narrowed and sharpened, knew the taste of copper in your mouth, the way your hands went cold and steady. "You know what happened to the other 7?" Elias asked quietly. "What?" "The other 7 men who helped burn my family. You know what happened to them?" Sutter didn't answer, but Elias could see the question in his eyes. "I'll tell you. Elias continued. His voice was soft, almost gentle. First one, I shot him in a saloon in Dodge. He was drunk, begging, told me he was sorry, that it wasn't his idea. I shot him anyway. The line of men had gone very still. Even the ones trying to look tough had stopped moving. Second one tried to fight, fancied himself quick. He wasn't. I put 3 rounds in him before he cleared leather. Elias took a step forward, just one, measured. Third and fourth were brothers. Found them in a mining camp. They tried to ambush me. Didn't work out for them. Another step. Fifth one ran, made it almost 20 miles before his horse broke down. He cried when I caught him, offered me money, offered me anything. Jesus Christ, someone muttered. Sixth took his own life when he saw me coming, put his gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger, saved me the trouble. Elias was close enough now to see the sweat starting to bead on faces, close enough to see hands trembling. Seventh was hard. Old man like me, living quiet, had grandkids. But he'd been there. He'd watched. So I killed him in his sleep, quick, merciful. He stopped walking. The distance between him and Sutter's line was maybe 30 yards now. You want to know what they all had in common? Elias asked. Silence. They all thought they'd gotten away with it. Thought 16 years was enough time. Thought some old man with a grudge wouldn't matter. His hand dropped to his side, loose and ready. They were wrong. Big talk, Sutter said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. Big talk from one man against 18. 17, a voice called from behind the line. Everyone turned. One of the younger men, couldn't have been more than 20, was backing away, hands raised. I didn't sign up for this, he said. His voice was shaking. Didn't sign up to die for Cole Riker. You coward, Sutter snarled. You move another step and I'll bomb. You'll what? Shoot me yourself? The kid kept backing up. Go ahead. Save him the trouble. I'm done. He turned and ran. Disappeared down an alley. The line wavered. Elias could see doubt spreading like a disease, could see men looking at each other, asking silent questions. Anyone else? Sutter's voice cracked like a whip. Anyone else want to run? Show yourself now. 2 more men stepped back, older than the kid, weathered. One of them spoke up. This ain't right, Jack. This ain't what we signed on for. What you signed on for is what Mr. Calder says you signed on for. Mr. Calder ain't here. You are. And I ain't dying for him or for you or for some bastard like Riker. They left too. Walking, not running. Keeping their dignity. 14 now. Still terrible odds. Still probably fatal. But better. Sutter's face had gone red. Anyone else? Any other cowards want to slink away? Nobody moved. The ones left were either true believers or too scared of Calder to run. Either way, they'd stay. There's your answer, old man, Sutter said, turning back to Elias. 14 men who aren't afraid to do what needs doing. 14 men about to die for someone else's sin, Elias said. We all die for something. At least we'll take you with us. You believe that? I know it. You're good. I'll grant you that. Maybe even great once upon a time. But you're old, slow, and we've got you surrounded. Elias looked to his left. 3 men positioned there, trying to get an angle. Looked right. 4 more, spread out. Surrounded was right. His mind was already calculating, already planning. First shot had to be Sutter. Take out the leader, scatter the followers. But Sutter knew that, would be ready for it. So maybe start with Holloway instead, the dangerous one on Sutter's left. Or the tall one on the right, who had the look of someone who'd actually killed before and knew how to do it efficiently. Too many choices. Too many variables. His finger trembled again, just a slight twitch, barely noticeable. But he noticed. Last chance, Sutter said. And I mean it this time. Turn around, ride out. Live another day. Can't do that. Why the hell not? Your family's dead, been dead 16 years. Killing Riker won't bring them back. I know. Then what's the point? What's the goddamn point of dying here for nothing? Elias thought about that. Really thought about it. What was the point? He'd asked himself that question 1,000 times over 16 years. Asked it every morning when he woke up to hunt. Asked it every night before he fell asleep. Asked it every time he put a bullet in a man's chest and watched the light fade from his eyes. I made a promise, he said finally. To who? Your dead wife? Your dead kids? They're in the ground, old man. They don't care. I care. That's your problem right there. You care too damn much about the past, about settling scores, about... You talk too much, Elias said. And Drew, the world exploded. Elias's first shot caught Sutter in the chest, exactly where he'd aimed, punching through his shirt and spinning him sideways. His second shot went to Holloway, who'd been faster than expected, already clearing leather. The round hit him in the shoulder instead of the heart, knocked him back but didn't drop him. Then everyone was shooting and the street became hell. Bullets snapped past Elias's head, cracked through the air like angry hornets. He threw himself sideways, rolling behind a water trough as wood splintered around him. His hips screamed, his back locked up. He ignored both, came up shooting. The tall man on Sutter's right went down, clutching his throat. The man next to him took a round in the gut and folded like a broken doll. 4 down, 10 left. Return fire hammered into the water trough. Geysers of water erupted. The wood began to splinter and crack. Elias scrambled backward, keeping the trough between him and the shooters. His hand found his backup gun, pulled it from his boot. 2 guns now, twice the firepower. A man rushed him from the left, shotgun raised. Elias shot him twice, center mass. The shotgun went off, blowing a hole in the dirt 3 feet to Elias's right. 5 down. But he'd lost track. Too much smoke, too much chaos. Men were moving, taking cover, flanking. A bullet grazed his arm, hot line of fire. Another hit his left boot heel, nearly knocking him off balance. He rolled again, came up behind a hitching post. Shot a man taking aim from the general store window. The glass shattered and the man fell backward. 6 down. His guns were empty. Both of them. He dropped behind cover, hands working by muscle memory. Reload, reload. Bullets dropping from shaking fingers. Pick them up, shove them in, snap the cylinder closed. A shadow fell across him. Elias looked up. Holloway stood there, blood streaming from his wounded shoulder, gun pointed down at Elias's face. "Got you," Holloway said. His finger tightened on the trigger. A shot rang out. But it wasn't from Holloway's gun. Holloway's head snapped sideways. He stumbled, fell. Elias stared, confused. Then he saw her. Maria, Diego's sister, standing in the doorway of the boarding house, holding a rifle that looked too big for her hands. Her face was white with shock at what she'd done. "Get down!" Elias shouted. She dove back inside just as bullets chewed up the doorframe where she'd been standing. 7 down, Elias thought, but he hadn't killed that one. No time to process it. Men were closing in. He could hear boots on wood, on dirt, could hear shouted orders. He came up shooting, dropped one man climbing onto the porch of the saloon, wounded another who tried to rush him from the side. 8 down, maybe 9 if the wounded one didn't get up. His lungs burned, his heart hammered like it was trying to break out of his chest. The world had narrowed to muzzle flashes and screams and the smell of gunpowder. This was it. This was how it ended. Not in some blaze of glory, but in the dirt of a forgotten town, swarmed by men who'd forget his name by sunset. Then more shots. But not at him. Elias risked a glance. Saw Tommy the barkeep shooting from the saloon window. Saw Mrs. Chen on her porch, holding what looked like her dead husband's revolver, firing with grim determination. Saw Diego running across the street with a gun too big for him, shooting wild but forcing Calder's men to take cover. The whole damn town had joined the fight. "No," Elias whispered. "No, you fools." But it was too late. The battle had spread. What started as one old man's suicide run had become something else, something bigger, something that would get them all killed. A man broke from cover, running toward Mrs. Chen's porch. Elias shot him. Another tried to flank Tommy. Diego got him with a lucky shot. The numbers were shifting. Not in Elias's favor necessarily, but not completely against him either. Sutter was still alive, crawling toward cover, clutching his chest. Blood spread across his shirt, but he wasn't dead yet. Wasn't even close. Tough bastard. Elias broke from his cover, running low and fast despite his protesting body. Bullets kicked up dirt around his feet. He dove behind a water barrel, came up, fired twice. Another man down. Maybe 10 total now. His left gun clicked empty. He'd lost count of his shots. Rookie mistake. The kind of mistake that got you killed. He holstered it, kept the right gun up, scanned for targets. The street had become a maze of smoke and bodies and chaos. Hard to tell who was winning. Hard to tell anything except that people were dying and the dying wasn't stopping. A young voice screamed, Diego's voice. Elias's head snapped around, saw the boy on the ground, clutching his leg, saw one of Calder's men standing over him, gun raised. Elias shot without thinking. The man went down. Maria ran from the boarding house, grabbed her brother, started dragging him to safety. "Stay down!" Elias roared. "Everyone stay down!" But they wouldn't. Tommy was still shooting. Mrs. Chen had moved to a new window. 3 more townspeople had appeared, armed with whatever they could find. A blacksmith with a shotgun. A Mexican woman with a derringer. An old man with a Henry rifle. The whole town was at war with itself, and it was Elias's fault. "Stop!" he shouted. "Everyone stop shooting!" No one listened, or maybe they couldn't hear over the gunfire. Sutter had made it to cover behind an overturned cart. He was shouting orders, trying to rally his men. 4 were still standing. 4 plus Sutter made 5. Against Elias and maybe 8 townspeople. The odds had shifted. But the cost. The cost had been too high. Elias saw bodies in the street that shouldn't be there. Saw the blacksmith down, not moving. Saw the old man with the Henry rifle clutching his side, blood spreading. This wasn't justice. This was just murder wearing a different coat. "Sutter!" Elias called out. "Sutter, you hear me?" A pause in the shooting, everyone waiting. "I hear you." Sutter's voice came back, strained with pain. "End this, you and me. Send your men away. Send these people away. Just you and me." "Why would I do that?" "Because you're dying anyway. That chest wound's killing you slow. I can see it from here." Silence. Then a wet cough. Sutter knew it was true. "And if I don't?" Sutter called back. "Then everyone dies. Your men. These people. You. Me. Everyone. That what you want? That what Calder pays you for?" Another long pause. Elias could hear Sutter's labored breathing. "You'll let my men walk?" Sutter asked. "They throw down their guns. They walk. And Riker?" "That's between me and him." More silence. Then Sutter's voice, stronger now, making his choice. "Boys," he called out, "put down your guns. It's over." "But boss," someone started. "It's over." Sutter coughed again, harder. "Take your pay and go. Find Calder. Tell him." He trailed off. "Tell him I'm sorry." One by one, guns hit the dirt. 4 men stepped out of cover, hands raised. They looked at Elias with a mixture of hatred and relief. "Go," Elias said. They went, walking quickly, not looking back. Within a minute, the street was empty except for the dead and dying, and Sutter. Elias stood slowly. His whole body felt like it had been beaten with hammers. He walked toward the overturned cart, gun ready but not aimed. Sutter was propped against the cart, both hands pressed to his chest. Blood leaked between his fingers, too much blood. His face was gray. "You're better than I thought," Sutter said. His voice was getting weaker. "Faster." "Used to be faster." "Fast enough," Sutter coughed. Red bubbles appeared on his lips. "Lung shot. That's bad." "Yeah." "How long I got?" Elias looked at the wound, at the amount of blood. "Minutes. Maybe less." Sutter nodded like that was acceptable, like he'd expected it. "Riker's in the old mine," he said. 3 miles north. Calder's got him locked up there with 2 guards. "Why tell me?" "Because I'm tired." Sutter's eyes were starting to glaze. "Tired of being afraid. Tired of doing terrible things for terrible men. Tired of everything. I know the feeling. You killed good men today. My men." "I know." "Some of them had families, kids." "I know," Elias said again, and he did. "Would carry their faces with him same as all the others." "Does it matter to you?" Sutter asked. "Any of it?" Elias thought about lying, decided against it. "Yes, it all matters, that's the problem." Sutter almost smiled. "Problem is right." He coughed again. This time blood poured out, too much to stop. His eyes went wide with surprise and fear. "I don't," he started. "I don't want to." "I know," Elias said quietly. He knelt down, took Sutter's hand. "I know." Sutter died holding a stranger's hand in the middle of a street he'd terrorized for years. Died afraid and alone despite not being alone. Elias stood slowly, looked around at what he'd done. 10 bodies. Maybe more. Hard to count with all the blood. Behind him, people were emerging from cover. Maria had Diego on a porch, wrapping his leg. Tommy was staring at the dead blacksmith, tears streaming down his face. Mrs. Chen stood on her steps, gun hanging loose in her hand, looking like she'd aged 100 years in 10 minutes. They'd won. But it didn't feel like victory. Felt like something else, something heavier. Elias reloaded his guns. His hands were steadier now, the tremor gone. Adrenaline made up for a lot. "Mr. Vaughan," Maria's voice. She was walking toward him, Diego limping beside her. "You shouldn't have done that," Elias said. "Any of you. This wasn't your fight." "Yes, it was," Mrs. Chen said, joining them. "It became our fight the moment you gave us hope. Hope gets you killed." "Fear was killing us already," Tommy added. He'd left the saloon, stood with the others. "At least this way we died on our feet." "You're not dead," Elias said. "Some of us are." Tommy gestured at the blacksmith's body, at the old man who'd bled out against the general store wall. Ben Johnson was 73, had grandkids, died fighting for a stranger. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," Mrs. Chen said sharply. "Ben chose this. We all did. You gave us a choice. That's more than anyone's given us in years." Elias didn't know what to say to that, didn't have words for the weight settling on his shoulders. "The mine," Diego said quietly. His face was pale from pain, but his eyes were fierce. "You're going after Riker now?" "That's the plan." "You need help?" "No." "But no," Elias said again, firmer. "You've done enough. All of you. This next part. This is mine alone." He walked to his mare, Luna, he reminded himself, still tied up at the stable. The boy who ran it was there, had watched the whole battle from the loft. "She's ready, senor," the boy said. "Fed and watered." "You got my gear?" "See." Elias saddled up, wincing as his body reminded him of all the ways it had been abused in the last hour. His arm bled from the graze. His ribs ached where he'd rolled wrong. Every breath hurt. But he could ride, could shoot. That was enough. He turned Luna north toward the hills where Sutter said the mine was. "Mr. Vaughan?" Maria called out. He stopped. "Come back," she said. "After. Come back and let us thank you proper." "Maybe," Elias said, knowing he probably wouldn't. He rode out of Copper Hollow with the morning sun at his back and the dead behind him. The town would survive, would rebuild, would tell stories about this day for years. But Elias wouldn't be in those stories. Not if he could help it. He had one name left. One man to kill. Then maybe, finally, he could stop. The mine was where Sutter said it would be. Old Silver Claim, played out 10 years ago. The shaft gaped like a mouth in the hillside, timbers gray and rotting. 2 horses were tied outside. 2 guards, like Sutter said. Elias approached slowly, making noise. Let them hear him coming. A man stepped out of the mine entrance, young, nervous, gun already drawn. "That's far enough," the man said. Elias stopped. "I'm here for Cole Riker." "Yeah, we heard you might be. Heard what happened in town, too." "Then you know how this ends." "Maybe." The man's gun hand shook. "Maybe not. Sutter's dead. Calder's going to be pissed. Might be better for us if we bring him your head instead of Riker's." "You could try that," Elias agreed. The second guard appeared, older, harder looking. He studied Elias with the eyes of someone who'd seen violence before and wasn't impressed. "You killed 10 men in town?" the older guard asked. "Something like that. Lost count." "Lost count?" The guard smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "That's cold." "That's honest." "Fair enough." The guard tilted his head toward the mine. "Riker's inside, locked in the old office. Calder's orders were to keep him safe until this blew over." "It's not blowing over." "No. I can see that now." The guard holstered his weapon. "I got 3 kids at home. A wife. Don't much care for Riker anyway. He's a mean drunk and a bastard besides." "So?" "So I'm walking away, taking my pay and going home to my family." He looked at the younger guard. "You coming, Tommy?" The younger man, another Tommy, Elias thought, seemed like every other man was named Tommy, looked torn. "Calder will kill us," he said. "Calder's going to have bigger problems than us." The older guard untied his horse. "This man just declared war, killed Sutter and most of the crew. You think Calder's got time to worry about two guards who had the sense to walk away? Tommy thought about it, then holstered his own gun. Riker's in the back, he said to Elias. Through the main shaft, left at the first fork. Can't miss it. They rode off together, not looking back. Elias dismounted, tied Luna to a dead tree, checked his guns one more time. This was it. The moment 16 years had been building toward. He walked into the mine. The darkness swallowed him whole. Elias stood just inside the mine entrance, letting his eyes adjust. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in the span of 3 steps. The air smelled of rot and earth and something older, something that had been buried and forgotten. Water dripped somewhere deeper in. The sound echoed off stone walls, made it hard to tell direction. He moved forward slowly, one hand on the rough-hewn wall, the other on his gun. The floor was uneven, littered with debris. His boot hit something that rattled, old tools maybe, or bones. Hard to tell in the dark. The main shaft stretched ahead, swallowed by blackness. But there was light up ahead. Faint, flickering. Lamplight. Elias followed it. The mine had the feel of a tomb. Support timbers groaned under the weight of the mountain above. Every few steps, dirt sifted down from cracks in the ceiling. The whole thing felt ready to collapse, like it was just waiting for an excuse. He reached the fork the guard mentioned. Left passage showed light. Right passage showed nothing but more darkness. He went left. The passage narrowed. Elias had to turn sideways in places, his shoulders scraping against stone. His breathing sounded too loud in the confined space, his heartbeat even louder. Then the passage opened up into what must have been the old office. Wooden walls, partially collapsed, a desk rotting in the corner, mining equipment rusted beyond use. And in the middle of it all, chained to a support beam, sat Cole Riker. He was smaller than Elias expected. Men built themselves up in memory, became giants. But Riker was just a man, maybe 50. Thin, balding, face mapped with broken capillaries from too much drink. He wore a filthy shirt, torn pants. His hands were chained above his head, forcing him to half stand, half kneel. He looked up when Elias entered. His eyes were bloodshot but alert. "You him?" Riker's voice came out as a croak. "The ghost." Elias didn't answer, just stood there looking at this man, this pathetic broken thing chained in the dark. This was what he'd hunted for 16 years. "I know you," Riker said. He squinted in the lamplight. "Wait, I know your face. You're Vorn, the homesteader from—" "Don't," Elias said quietly. "Don't say it. Jesus, you're still alive. After all this time, you're—" "Shut up." Riker shut up. His eyes went wide, finally understanding what was happening, finally putting the pieces together. "It was business," he said quickly. "Just business. Nothing personal. Calder wanted the land and I said shut up." Elias drew his gun. The sound of the hammer cocking echoed in the small space, loud as thunder. Riker started crying, not dignified tears, ugly, desperate sobbing. Snot ran from his nose. His whole body shook. "Please," he blubbered. "Please, I got kids. I got a family. I didn't mean, we didn't know anyone was inside. We thought the house was empty." "It wasn't." I know, but we didn't know then. It was supposed to be a scare job, just burn the place, make you leave. We didn't know your wife and kids were—" Elias hit him, not with the gun, with his fist. Felt Riker's teeth cut his knuckles, felt something in Riker's face break. Riker screamed. Blood poured from his nose, from his mouth. "You're lying," Elias said. His voice was perfectly calm. "You knew. Sarah came to the window, held up Thomas, begged you to stop, and you laughed." No, that's not—" "The drunk in Missouri told me before I killed him. Told me everything. How you laughed, how you held the torch, how you threw it through the window and watched them burn." Riker was shaking his head, denying it, but his eyes said different. His eyes said guilty. "They screamed for 8 minutes," Elias continued. "I counted. 8 minutes of hearing my family die while I was too far away to save them." "I'm sorry," Riker sobbed. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Sorry doesn't bring them back. Elias raised the gun, pointed it at Riker's forehead. His hand was steady. No tremor now. Just cold certainty. This was it. The moment he'd lived for, the moment that would finally make the screaming in his head stop. He started to squeeze the trigger, and stopped. Because something was wrong. This wasn't how it was supposed to feel, wasn't supposed to feel empty, hollow. He'd imagined this moment 1,000 times, imagined the satisfaction, the closure, the sense that justice had finally been served, but standing here, gun pressed to a sobbing man's head, all Elias felt was tired. "Do it," Riker whispered. "Just do it. Get it over with." Elias's fingers stayed on the trigger, but he couldn't pull it. Couldn't stop seeing Riker's face, not the face of the monster he'd built up in his mind. Just a man. Pathetic. Broken. Already destroyed by fear and time and his own guilt. Killing him wouldn't change anything. Wouldn't bring Sarah back. Wouldn't bring Thomas or Rebecca back. Wouldn't undo 16 years of pain. Would just add one more body to a pile that was already too high. "Why aren't you doing it?" Riker asked. His voice had changed. Less afraid now. Almost curious. "I don't know," Elias admitted. "You came all this way. Killed all those men. For this. For me. I know. So do it. Pull the trigger. Finish what you started." Elias looked at him. Really looked. Saw the desperate hope underneath. Saw a man who wanted to die because living with what he'd done was worse than any bullet. And Elias understood something then. Something he should have seen years ago. Death would be mercy. Would be an escape. And Cole Riker didn't deserve mercy. He deserved to live. To carry his sins. To wake up every morning knowing what he'd done and knowing he'd gotten away with it. To die slow and afraid, alone with his guilt. That was real punishment. That was real justice. Elias lowered the gun. Riker stared at him, confused. "What are you doing?" "Leaving." "What? No, you can't just... You have to finish it. You have to..." "I don't have to do anything," Elias said. He holstered his gun. "Except decide who I want to be when this is over. I killed your family. I know. I burned them alive. I know that too." "Then kill me!" Riker was screaming now, thrashing against his chains. "God damn it, kill me! Don't leave me like this!" But Elias was already walking away, back down the narrow passage, back toward the light. Behind him, Riker's screams echoed off stone walls. Screams of rage and fear, and something that might have been relief. Elias didn't look back. He emerged from the mine into sunlight that hurt his eyes. Luna was where he'd left her, waiting patient. He stood there for a moment, breathing clean air. His hands were shaking now, not from fear or age, from something else, something like release. 16 years. 7 men dead by his hand. And the 8th, the last one, the one who mattered most, still alive and chained in the dark. It should have felt like failure. Instead, it felt like the first real choice he'd made in longer than he could remember. A choice not to kill. Not to become the thing he'd been hunting. He untied Luna, climbed into the saddle. His body protested every movement, reminded him of the battle, the blood, the cost. But he was alive. Still breathing, still here. He turned Luna south, back toward town. Wasn't sure why. Wasn't sure what waited for him there, but it was better than the nothing waiting for him if he rode the other direction. The ride back took less time than the ride out. The sun was high now, hot on his shoulders. He could smell himself, sweat and blood and gunpowder. Could feel the grime caked in his beard, the ache in his bones. Copper Hollow appeared on the horizon like a mirage. For a moment, Elias almost kept riding. Almost let Luna carry him past, away, toward some other forgotten place where he could disappear. But his hands pulled the reins, turned her toward town. The main street was different now. Bodies had been cleared away. Blood washed from the dirt, though dark stains remained. People moved around, cleaning up, repairing, living. They saw him coming and stopped. Word spread fast. The old man was back. Maria came out of the boarding house first, Diego limping behind her. Then Tommy from the saloon, Mrs. Chen from her porch. Others emerged from doorways, from alleys. Maybe 30 people total. Everyone who was left. They formed a line across the street, watching him approach. Elias pulled up, sat in the saddle looking down at them. Wondered what they saw. A hero? A killer? Some mix of both that didn't have a name? "Riker?" Mrs. Chen asked. Her voice carried in the quiet. "Alive," Elias said. That caused a stir. Confused looks. Angry mutters. You let him live? Tommy stepped forward. After everything? After we... He gestured at the bloodstains, the damage. After what it cost. I let him live, Elias confirmed. Why? Good question. Elias didn't have a good answer. Because killing him wouldn't have changed anything, he said finally. Wouldn't have brought my family back. Wouldn't have made any of this right. But justice? Justice isn't the same as revenge. Elias looked around at their faces. I learned that too late to save the others, but not too late to save myself. Maria moved closer. Her face was hard to read. What happens now? She asked. Riker's still alive. Calder's still out there. They'll come back. They'll punish us for helping you. She was right. Elias knew she was right. Then you leave, he said. All of you. Pack what you can carry and get out before Calder hears what happened here. This is our home, Mrs. Chen said. Your home just became a graveyard. Calder won't let this stand. He can't. If he does, every town in 4 territories will think they can stand up to him. So we run, Diego said bitterly. We finally fight back and then we run anyway. You live, Elias corrected. There's a difference. Is there? The boy's eyes were fierce. What kind of life is running? What kind of life is being afraid? Elias didn't have an answer for that either. A rider appeared on the north road, coming fast. Everyone turned, hands moving toward weapons, but it was just one rider. A boy, couldn't be more than 15. He pulled up hard, his horse lathered with sweat. Calder, the boy gasped. Calder's coming, with 30 men, maybe 40. They're an hour behind me. The crowd erupted, shouting, panic, people running for their homes, for their horses, for anything that might save them. Everyone calm down, Tommy yelled. We can defend the town. We did it once. We can... No, Elias said. His voice cut through the chaos. You can't. You got lucky today. Caught them off guard. It won't work twice. Then what do we do? Maria demanded. Elias looked at the street, at the buildings, at the faces of people who'd trusted him, who'd followed him, who'd killed and died because he'd given them something to believe in. This was his fault, all of it. So it was his responsibility to fix. You run, he said again. All of you. Take your families. Take what you can carry. Head for the border. Cross into Mexico if you have to. And you? Mrs. Chen asked. I'll slow them down. Give you time. That's suicide, Tommy said. Probably. You'll die for nothing. Not nothing. For you? For them? Elias gestured at the crowd. For a choice I should have made 16 years ago. What choice? To fight for the living instead of dying for the dead. The words hung in the air. People stared at him like they were seeing him for the first time. Maria started crying, not loud, just tears running down her face. You don't have to do this, she said. Yeah, I do. Why? Because I killed your blacksmith, your neighbors. Good people who died because I dragged them into my war. His voice cracked. Because I'm tired of running, tired of killing, tired of being angry. He climbed down from Luna's saddle, handed the reins to Diego. Take care of her, he said. She deserves better than she got. Mr. Vorn. Go, now, while you still can. He walked toward the saloon, reloading his guns as he went. Behind him, he could hear movement. People gathering their things, horses being saddled, families saying quick goodbyes to homes they'd never see again. Tommy caught up to him at the saloon steps. You can't hold them off alone, Tommy said. Not 40 men. Don't plan to hold them off. Just plan to make them work for it. That's crazy. Maybe. Elias looked at him. You still here? I'm not leaving my saloon. It's just a building. It's my building. My father's before me. I'm not letting Calder burn it without a fight. Elias wanted to argue, wanted to tell him to run, to save himself. But he saw the look in Tommy's eyes and recognized it, had worn it himself. Can you shoot? Elias asked. Well enough. Then get your gun, and all your ammunition. Mrs. Chen appeared next, holding her husband's revolver. I'm staying too, she said. Her voice allowed no argument. Then 3 more townspeople. Then 5. Then 10. By the time the dust settled, 15 people stood in the street with guns. Young and old, men and women. None of them looked like fighters. All of them looked determined. You're all fools, Elias said. So are you, Mrs. Chen replied. At least we're fools together. Diego limped forward, still holding Luna's reins. His leg was bandaged, but he could walk. I'm staying, he said. No, you're not. Maria grabbed him. You're hurt. You're coming with me. I'm not a child. You're my brother and you're leaving. Whilst they argued sharp and fast in Spanish. Finally, Diego relented, but the look he gave Elias was pure gratitude. Thank you, he said, for everything. Maria kissed Elias's cheek, quick and desperate. Don't die, she whispered. Then they were gone, riding south with maybe 20 others. The smart ones. The ones with families to protect. Elias watched them go until they were just dust on the horizon. Well, Tommy said, what's the plan? Plan is we make this street a killing ground. Use the buildings for cover. Force them to come at us straight down the middle where we can see them. They'll just burn us out, someone said. Maybe, but it'll take time, and time is what we're buying. They spent the next hour preparing, moving furniture to block windows, stacking barrels and crates for cover, loading guns, saying prayers for those who believed in such things. Elias took position in the saloon's second floor, Tommy beside him. Good view of the street, good angle for shooting. Mrs. Chen set up across the street in her boarding house, the others spread out covering all approaches. It was a decent setup. Against a normal gang, it might have even worked. Against 40 of Calder's men, it was barely better than suicide. But it was something, a choice, a stand. The sun started to drop toward the western hills. Long shadows stretched across the street. The town held its breath. Then they heard it. Hoofbeats. Lots of them, coming from the north like rolling thunder. Here they come, Tommy whispered. Elias checked his rifle one more time, counted his ammunition again. Still not enough, would never be enough. The riders appeared at the far end of the street, spread out in a wide line. More than 40, looked like 50 at least. At the center, on a black horse that had to stand 17 hands, rode Rafe Calder. Elias had never seen him in person before, only heard descriptions, but he would have recognized him anyway. Some men just looked like trouble, looked like violence wearing a suit. Calder was tall, broad-shouldered, face like carved granite, eyes that showed nothing but calculation. He wore a fine coat, expensive hat, looked more like a banker than a warlord. That made him more dangerous, not less. The line of riders stopped about 100 yards out, far enough to be safe from immediate gunfire, close enough to make their presence felt. Calder rode forward alone, stopped in the middle of the street. Someone want to tell me what happened to my men? His voice carried easy, calm, like he was asking about the weather. Elias stood up in the saloon window, rifle in hand. They're dead, he called back. Most of them anyway? Calder looked up at him. Even from this distance, Elias could see the man taking inventory, seeing an old man in a dirty coat, seeing someone who should be easy to kill. You must be Vorn, Calder said. I am. I've heard about you, the ghost, the legend. Calder smiled, but it was cold. Killed 7 men across 4 territories. Impressive. Thank you. Wasn't a compliment. Was an observation. Calder's hand rested on his saddle horn, casual. You killed my second. Killed a dozen of my men. Started a war you can't win. Maybe not. But I started it anyway. Why? You know why. Because of Riker? Because of something that happened 16 years ago? Calder shook his head. That's ancient history. Water under the bridge. Not to me. No, I suppose not. Calder looked around the street. Where are the townsfolk, the ones who helped you? Gone. All of them? Enough of them. Calder's smile widened. So it's just you and, what, 10 people? 12? 15, Mrs. Chen called from across the street. And we're not afraid of you anymore. No? Calder looked genuinely curious. What changed? We remembered what it felt like to fight back, she said. Mr. Vorn reminded us. Mr. Vorn got you all killed. We were already dead, Tommy said. Just took us a while to notice. Calder studied them all. His eyes moved from window to window, counting positions, calculating odds. I'll make you an offer, he said finally. Give me Vorn. The rest of you can leave. Take your horses, your belongings. I'll even give you money for starting over somewhere else. Silence. That's generous, Tommy said. Suspiciously generous. I'm a businessman. This, Calder gestured at the street, the bloodstains, the damage. This is expensive. Rebuilding is expensive. Finding new men is expensive. Simpler to just let you go. And if we say no, Elias asked, then I burn this town to the ground with you in it. Every building, every person, and I make it slow so you have time to regret your choice. You'd kill innocent people? I'd kill anyone in my way. That's how empires work, Mr. Vorn. That's how I built this one and how I'll keep it. Elias looked at Tommy, at Mrs. Chen, at the others scattered in buildings around the street. They looked back at him. Not one of them moved toward their horses. Guess that's your answer, Elias said. Calder sighed, like he was disappointed, like he'd hoped for better. So be it, he said. He turned his horse, rode back to his men. This is your last chance, he called out. Anyone who wants to live, throw down your guns and walk away. You have 60 seconds. Nobody moved. 60 seconds crawled by. Then Calder raised his hand, and all hell broke loose for the second time that day. The first volley hit like a hammer. Bullets tore through wood, shattered glass, kicked up splinters that flew like knives. The saloon window exploded inward, showering Elias with glass. He dropped flat, felt shards slice his cheek. Beside him, Tommy was already returning fire, working his rifle fast and steady. They're spreading out, Tommy shouted over the noise. Flanking left and right. Elias crawled to the window, risked a look. Calder's men were moving like professionals, using cover, advancing in coordinated groups. Not the swagger and chaos of Sutter's crew. These were soldiers. He sighted down his rifle, found a target, squeezed. The man went down, clutching his shoulder. More gunfire erupted from across the street. Mrs. Chen was shooting methodically, spacing her shots, making each one count. The other defenders were firing too, a ragged chorus of cracks and booms. But Calder's men kept coming. They're too many, someone yelled from down the street, panic edging their voice. Keep shooting, Elias called back. Make them pay for every inch. A bullet punched through the wall 6 inches from his head. Then another, then 5 more in rapid succession. They were concentrating fire on the saloon. Smart. Take out the strongest position first. We need to move, Tommy said. He was bleeding from a cut above his eye. They're going to bring this building down on us. Not yet. We hold as long as we can. That's not long enough. More bullets. The whole building shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. A support beam groaned like something dying. Elias shot a man trying to sprint across the street, caught him mid-stride. The man tumbled, didn't get up, but 3 more took his place, then 5, then 10. The math was simple and brutal. 15 defenders against 50 attackers. Each of Calder's men could die 3 times over, and he'd still win. Fall back, Elias shouted. Everyone fall back to the secondary positions. They'd planned for this. Knew the saloon wouldn't hold, had set up fallback positions in the buildings behind the main street. Tommy went first, scrambling toward the back stairs. Elias covered him, firing until his rifle clicked empty. He grabbed his Colt, kept shooting. A man appeared in the doorway below. Elias shot him. Another took his place. Elias shot him too. Then his Colt was empty and men were flooding into the saloon. He ran, down the back stairs through the narrow hallway that smelled of spilled beer and old vomit. Out the rear door into an alley choked with garbage. Tommy was there, waiting. They ran together toward the boarding house, bullets chasing them. Something hot grazed Elias's thigh. Not deep, but it hurt like fire. They made it through Mrs. Chen's back door just as the saloon erupted in flames. Calder's men had torched it. Orange fire climbed the walls, reached for the sky. Smoke billowed black and thick. Bastards, Tommy whispered. He was staring at his life's work burning. Tears cut clean lines through the dirt on his face. No time, Elias said. They'll burn this place next. Mrs. Chen was upstairs, still firing. They joined her at the second-floor window. The street was chaos now. Fire and smoke and running men. Defenders were falling back, building by building. Some weren't falling back at all. Just falling. Elias saw the butcher go down, shot through the chest. Saw the woman with the derringer take a bullet to the head and drop like a puppet with cut strings. 13 defenders left, then 12, then 11. We can't win this, Mrs. Chen said. She wasn't asking, just stating fact. I know. Then why are we still fighting? Because every minute we hold is another minute those families get further away. She nodded, understood, turned back to her shooting. The boarding house shook as something heavy hit the front wall, probably a battering ram. They were going to force entry. Upstairs, Elias said. Roof access. We can get across to the next building. They ran. Mrs. Chen moved surprisingly fast for a woman her age. Tommy stayed close behind. The roof access was a narrow ladder, rung slick with years of grime. Elias went first, shoulder complaining as he pulled himself up. His wounded thigh screamed. They emerged onto a flat roof that was more tar paper than structure. The whole thing felt spongy, ready to give way. From up here, Elias could see the whole battlefield. The burning saloon, Calder's men surrounding the remaining defensive positions, bodies in the street, too many to count. And beyond it all, riding back and forth like a general surveying his victory, Rafe Calder. There, Elias pointed. Next building over. We can cross using that beam. A single wooden beam, maybe 8 inches wide, stretched between buildings, 12 feet long, 40-foot drop if you missed. You're joking, Tommy said. Do I look like I'm joking, Mrs. Tutz? Chen went first without hesitating. Walked across like she was strolling through a garden, didn't even look down. Tommy went next, slower but steady. Elias brought up the rear. His hip howled with every step. His vision swam from blood loss and exhaustion. Halfway across, his boot slipped. He caught himself, barely. Teetered on one leg for a heart-stopping moment. Below, he could see Calder's men breaking into the boarding house. Could hear them shouting, searching. He made it across. Tommy pulled him onto the roof. We can't keep running, Tommy said. Eventually we run out of buildings. I know. So what's the plan? The plan, Elias said, catching his breath, is we make Calder come to us. Personal. How? Elias looked down at the street, at Calder, still mounted, still commanding. By giving him something he wants more than this town. He stood up on the roof edge, making himself visible, raised his rifle over his head. Calder! He shouted. The gunfire slowed, then stopped. Everyone looking up now. Calder, you hear me? The man on the black horse turned. Even from this distance, Elias could see his expression change. Curiosity, mostly. I hear you, Vorn. You want me? Come get me yourself. Or are you too much of a coward to do your own killing? That got a reaction. Calder's men shifted, muttered. Calling their boss a coward wasn't something people did twice. Calder sat perfectly still for a long moment. Then he dismounted, handed his reins to the nearest man. Where? He called up. Main Street. You and me. Nobody else. Why would I agree to that? Because if you don't, I'll spend the rest of my life hunting you. I'll kill every man who works for you, burn every building you own, make you afraid to sleep at night. Elias's voice carried clear and hard. Or you can end it now. Prove you're the biggest wolf in the pack. Calder stood there thinking, calculating. Then he smiled. All right, old man. You want to die quick? I'll oblige. He started walking toward the center of the street, alone. What are you doing? Tommy grabbed Elias's arm. That man's half your age. He'll kill you. Probably. Then why? Because it's the only way to end this without everyone dying. Elias checked his Colt. 5 rounds. Would have to be enough. And because I'm tired, Tommy, so goddamn tired. Mrs. Chen touched his shoulder. Thank you, she said quietly, for giving us this chance. Don't thank me yet. Still have to win. You already won, the moment you stood up in that saloon yesterday. Her eyes were wet. You reminded us we were alive. That's worth more than surviving. Elias wanted to say something, couldn't find the words. He climbed down through the building, through rooms that had been shot to pieces, stepped out onto the street. The sun was setting now, painting everything red and gold. Appropriate, Elias thought. Everything was red already. Calder waited in the middle of the street, hands loose at his sides. He'd shed his coat, rolled up his sleeves. His gun hung low on his hip, tied down. A gunfighter's rig. Elias walked toward him slowly. Every step hurt. His thigh was bleeding again. His ribs felt broken. His vision kept trying to blur, but he kept walking. They stopped about 20 feet apart, close enough to talk, close enough to kill. You look like hell, Calder observed. Feel worse. I'll make it quick. Professional courtesy. Appreciate that. Calder studied him with cold eyes. You really killed 7 men for revenge? I did. And the 8th, Riker? Left him alive. That surprised Calder. Elias could see it in the slight widening of his eyes. Why? Because killing him wouldn't have changed anything. Just would have made me more like you. And that's bad. Yeah, Elias said. That's bad. Calder almost smiled. You've got principles. I respect that. Disagree with them, but respect them. Your respect doesn't mean much. No, I suppose it doesn't. Calder's hand moved closer to his gun. Any last words? Elias thought about it. Thought about Sarah and Thomas and Rebecca. Thought about 16 years of hunting and killing and dying inside. Thought about Maria and Diego and Mrs. Chen and all the people who'd found something worth fighting for. Yeah, he said. Just one thing. What's that? You lose. Calder's expression changed. What? You lose. Even if you kill me. Even if you burn this whole town. You lose. That doesn't make sense. It does, though. Because you came here with 50 men to kill one old man and a handful of shopkeepers. Because you had to prove you were still in charge. Still feared. Elias took a step closer. But you're not. Not anymore. Those families that ran, they'll tell everyone what happened here, how this town fought back, how they made you bleed. I'll hunt them down, kill everyone. You can try, but there are too many, scattered too far, and every one of them is a seed. Another step. A seed of rebellion, of hope. Eventually those seeds grow. Philosophy won't stop a bullet, old man. No, but it'll outlive one. Calder's jaw tightened. Are we going to talk or are we going to do this? Just wanted you to know, before you kill me, that it was all for nothing. Elias smiled. It probably looked terrible. Your empire's already falling. You just haven't noticed yet. Big talk from a dead man. Guess we'll see. They stared at each other. The street had gone silent, every eye watching, waiting for the moment. It came faster than Elias expected. Calder's hand blurred toward his gun, fast, practiced. The movement of someone who'd done this 100 times. But Elias had done it 100 times too, and he'd spent 16 years with nothing to do but practice. His hand moved. Not as fast as it used to, not as smooth, but fast enough. 2 guns cleared leather, 2 hammers cocked, 2 shots rang out, so close together they sounded like one. Elias felt the impact. Center chest. Felt his legs give out. Felt himself falling. But he saw Calder falling too, saw the red bloom on the man's white shirt, saw his gun tumble from nerveless fingers. They hit the ground at almost the same time. Elias tried to breathe, couldn't. His lungs wouldn't work right. Everything tasted like copper. He turned his head. Calder was maybe 10 feet away, gasping like a fish. Their eyes met. Tie, Calder wheezed. No, Elias managed. I win. How you figure? Because I don't care if I die. You do. Calder's laugh turned into a cough. Red bubbles appeared on his lips. Fair point. They lay there as the sun finished setting, as the light bled out of the sky. Footsteps approached. Elias couldn't turn his head to see who. Boss! Someone knelt by Calder. Boss, hang on! Tell the men. Calder's voice was fading. Tell them to stand down, let the town be. But boss, do it. That's an order. More footsteps. Someone knelt by Elias. Mrs. Chen's face swam into view. You stubborn fool, she said, but she was crying. Did they get away? Elias asked. The families? Yes. Far away by now. Good. That's good. Tommy appeared, pressing something against Elias's chest, trying to stop the bleeding. Too late for that, but Elias appreciated the effort. You're not going to die, Tommy said. His voice shook. We'll get you to a doctor. You'll be fine. Tommy. What? I'm dying. We both know it. Don't say that. It's okay. And the strange thing was, it was okay. Elias felt calm. Peaceful almost. I finished what I needed to finish. You didn't kill Riker. No, but I let him live. That was harder. Elias coughed, tasted blood. That was the real victory. Mrs. Chen took his hand. Her skin was warm, solid, real. You saved us, she said. You saved yourselves. I just reminded you that you could. The pain was fading now. Everything was fading, getting soft around the edges. He could see Sarah's face, not burning, not screaming, just smiling the way she used to smile when he came home from working the fields. Could see Thomas chasing frogs in the creek. Could see Rebecca reading a book in the afternoon sun. They were waiting for him. Finally. Mr. Vaughan? Mrs. Chen's voice, far away now. Yeah? Thank you. He tried to answer, couldn't quite manage it. The last thing he heard was Tommy's voice, broken and raw, telling him to hang on. The last thing he saw was stars appearing in the darkening sky. Then nothing. Then everything. Elias Vaughan died in the street of a town he'd saved, surrounded by people who would remember him. His war was finally over, and he could rest. Across the street, Rafe Calder took his last breath 10 seconds later. His men stood around, uncertain and leaderless. One by one, they mounted their horses and rode away. Some headed for new territories. Some went home to families they'd neglected. Some just disappeared into the wilderness. The empire Calder had built dissolved in a single evening. Tommy and Mrs. Chen buried Elias on the hill overlooking town. Put up a simple marker. No fancy words, just his name and the dates. But people came. From Copper Hollow and from the families that had fled. They stood by the grave and told stories. About the old man who'd reminded them what courage looked like. Word spread. To neighboring towns, to other territories. The story grew with each telling, got bigger and stranger. But the core remained true. One man had stood against tyranny, had paid the ultimate price, and in dying had given others the chance to live. Diego healed. His leg would always have a limp, but he wore it proud, a reminder of the day he'd fought for something that mattered. Maria opened a school, taught children to read and write and think for themselves, named it after her father, but told stories about Elias Vaughan to every class. Mrs. Chen stayed in her boarding house, kept Elias's room exactly as he'd left it, sometimes rented it out to travelers, but always told them whose room it had been. Tommy rebuilt the saloon, hung a picture of Elias over the bar, refused to serve Calder's former men, no matter how much they offered to pay. Copper Hollow slowly came back to life. New people moved in, good people, the kind who'd heard the story and wanted to live somewhere that had chosen to fight. It would never be big, would never be important, but it would be free. And in a land where freedom was scarce, that counted for something. 3 months after the battle, a rider came to town. Thin, balding, broken-looking. Cole Riker had finally escaped the mine, had wandered for weeks, half dead from starvation and fear. He staggered into the rebuilt saloon, begging for water. Tommy looked at him for a long moment, recognized him. Everyone did. "You're Riker," Tommy said. "I am. Please. I know what you need." Tommy poured water, set it on the bar. "Elias Vaughan spared your life, told us about it before he died." Riker drank the water like a dying man, which, in a way, he was. "I didn't ask him to," Riker said. "I know. That's what made it mean something. What do I do now?" Tommy looked around the saloon, at the people drinking, at the life that had returned to this place. "You live," he said. "You live with what you did, every day, for as long as you've got left. That's punishment? That's mercy, which is more than you deserve." Riker finished his water, set down the glass with shaking hands. "Can I stay? Here in town?" "No, this town's for people who fought for it. You're not one of them." "Then where do I go?" "Anywhere. Nowhere. Doesn't matter." Tommy leaned across the bar. "But wherever you go, you carry Elias Vaughan's choice with you. You're alive because he chose to be better than you. Don't forget that." Riker left, walked out into the afternoon sun, disappeared down the road. Some said he made it to California, started over under a new name. Some said he drank himself to death in a border town. Some said he put a gun in his mouth after all, couldn't live with the weight. Nobody knew for sure. Nobody really cared. The man who mattered was already gone. But what he'd done, what he'd chosen, that remained. In the stories told around fires, in the way people stood a little straighter when talking about Copper Hollow. and the knowledge that one old man, beaten and tired and ready to die, had chosen mercy over revenge, had chosen to fight for the living instead of dying for the dead, had chosen, at the very end, to be something more than his anger. That was the real legacy. Not the bodies in the street, not the blood and fire and chaos, but the choice, the hardest shot not taken, the revenge not claimed, the future not destroyed. Tommy stood in his rebuilt saloon on the 6-month anniversary of the battle, looked at Elias's picture over the bar. "You did good, old man," he said quietly. "Better than good." Outside, children played in the street where men had died. Their laughter carried on the evening breeze, light and free. The sun set over Copper Hollow, painting the sky the colors of blood and gold. But the streets ran clean, and the people walked without fear, and that in the end was everything. The seasons changed over Copper Hollow the way they always did, indifferent to human pain or triumph. Winter came first, hard and cold. Snow buried the bloodstains in the street until you couldn't tell where men had died. The rebuilt saloon creaked under ice. Mrs. Chen's boarding house grew icicles that hung from the eaves like frozen tears. But inside those buildings, fires burned. People gathered, told stories. Diego's leg healed crooked despite Maria's best efforts. The boy, not really a boy anymore after what he'd seen, learned to walk with a rolling gait that made him look like an old sailor. He didn't complain, wore the limp like a badge. On the first anniversary of the battle, he stood at Elias's grave with flowers his sister had picked. "I never thanked you proper," Diego said to the stone. His English had gotten better. Maria made him practice every day. For Luna, for teaching me what it meant to stand up. The mare grazed nearby, getting fat on good grass and easy living. Diego had kept her, groomed her, talked to her like she might talk back. Sometimes he thought she understood. Probably she didn't. Didn't matter either way. Maria says I should let it go. The anger. Diego sat down in the dirt, ignoring the cold seeping through his pants. Says you came here angry and died angry, and that's not a good way to live. The wind picked up, rattling through dead leaves. But I don't think you died angry, Senor Vorn. I think you died at peace, because you made a choice that mattered. Diego touched the headstone, felt the rough grain of the wood. I'm trying to make choices that matter too. It's harder than it looks. He stayed until the sun started to set, then limped back to town. Maria had dinner waiting. They ate together now, just the two of them. Their parents were long dead. Copper Hollow was home because they'd bled for it. That night, lying in bed, Diego heard riders coming through town. Not many, maybe 3 or 4. He grabbed the rifle he kept by his bed, moved to the window. The riders stopped at the saloon, dismounted, went inside. Diego dressed quick, hurried downstairs. Maria was already awake, standing in the doorway. "Who are they?" she asked. "Don't know, but they're armed." They crossed the street together. The saloon was quiet except for low voices. Tommy stood behind the bar, face unreadable. 3 strangers sat at a table, still wearing their guns. The strangers looked up when Diego and Maria entered. One was a woman, maybe 30, with hard eyes and scarred hands. The other 2 were men, young and lean, with the look of people who'd been running for a long time. "You the ones who fought Calder?" the woman asked. Tommy nodded slowly. "Some of us. The ones who survived. We heard the story, thought it was made up, campfire talk. It's real enough." The woman looked around the rebuilt saloon, taking inventory. Calder's men said one old man started it, said he killed Riker for revenge. "He didn't kill Riker," Diego said. "He let him live, that was the point." "Why would he do that?" "Because killing him would have made him the same as Calder, same as all the men who take what they want and burn what they can't have." Diego's hand rested on his rifle. "Who are you? Why are you here?" "Name's Ruth Carver. These are my brothers, Sam and Joel." She gestured at the 2 men. "We've been running from a man named Pike, Dutch Pike. Heard of him?" Tommy nodded. Everyone had heard of Dutch Pike. He ran the territory south of what used to be Calder's empire. Meaner than Calder, if the stories were true. Less interested in money, more interested in pain. "Pike killed our father," Ruth continued. "Burned our ranch. We've been planning to go back, to fight. But we're 3 against maybe 40 of his men." "And you came here looking for what? An army?" Maria's voice was sharp. "We're not soldiers. We're farmers and shopkeepers." No. We came here looking for proof that it's possible, that people can fight back and win. We didn't win, Tommy said quietly. We survived. That's different. Is it? Yeah, it is. Elias Vaughan died in that street. So did Ben Johnson and Mary Kemp and half a dozen others. Their families are gone. Their homes are gone. We survived, but the cost was everything. Ruth absorbed this. Her brother shifted uncomfortably. Still, she said, you stood up, you made Calder bleed. That's more than anyone else has done. And now Calder's dead and his empire's gone and other men are carving up what's left. Tommy poured himself a drink, didn't offer one to the strangers. We didn't change anything, just traded one monster for 10 smaller ones. You changed something here, though. Ruth looked around again. This town, it's different. You can feel it. Different how? Free. It feels free. No one said anything for a long moment. What do you want from us? Diego asked finally. Advice. Maybe a blessing. Maybe just to know it's possible to fight men like Pike and not die trying. It's possible to fight, Maria said, but you'll probably die anyway. That's what we learned. But you did it anyway. We did it because we didn't have a choice, because running was the same as dying, just slower. Ruth nodded like she understood, like she'd already made up her mind and just needed someone to tell her she wasn't crazy. Thank you, she said. She stood, her brothers following suit. We'll leave in the morning, head back south. You going to fight Pike? Tommy asked. We're going to try. Then take this. Tommy reached under the bar, pulled out a rifle. Elias's rifle, the one he'd carried into battle. It belonged to a man who knew how to stand against impossible odds. Maybe it'll bring you luck. Ruth took it carefully, reverently, checked the action, sighted down the barrel. It's a good weapon, she said. It is, and the man who carried it was better, but he's dead now, so maybe the lesson isn't about fighting. Maybe it's about choosing what you fight for. What did he fight for? First, revenge, and it almost destroyed him. Tommy looked at Elias's picture over the bar. Then at the end, he fought for something else, for people he barely knew, for a future he wouldn't live to see. That's what made the difference. Ruth and her brothers left before sunrise. Diego watched them ride south into darkness that was just starting to fade. Wondered if they'd make it. Wondered if it mattered. Probably they'd die. Probably Pike would kill them and burn their bodies and forget their names within a week. But they'd chosen to fight anyway. That had to count for something. The years rolled on. 3 became 5, became 10. Copper Hollow grew. Not much, but enough. New families moved in, drawn by stories of the town that had stood against tyranny. They built houses, started businesses, planted crops that sometimes survived the harsh summers. Maria's school expanded. She taught reading and writing and arithmetic. But she also taught history, told the story of Elias Vaughan and the Battle of Copper Hollow, made sure every child knew what had happened, made sure they understood that freedom wasn't free and peace wasn't permanent. Mrs. Chen got older but refused to slow down. She still ran the boarding house, still kept Elias's room exactly as he'd left it, still cleaned his rifle, the one Tommy had given to Ruth Carver had been a spare, and hung it over the mantel. Why do you keep it? A young boarder asked her once. The man's been dead 10 years. 12, Mrs. Chen corrected. And I keep it because forgetting is easy. Remembering takes work. Tommy's saloon became the heart of the town. Not because of the whiskey, though the whiskey was good, but because of the stories. Every night someone would tell a tale about the battle, about Elias Vaughan, about standing against impossible odds. The stories grew with each telling, got bigger and stranger. Sometimes Elias killed 20 men single-handed. Sometimes he was 7 feet tall and bulletproof. Sometimes he'd been a general in the war, or a famous gunfighter, or a preacher who'd lost his faith. Tommy never corrected them, just poured drinks and listened and smiled. The truth was simpler and sadder and more powerful than any legend. But legends were what people needed, so Tommy let them have their legends. Diego grew into a man. The limp became part of him, barely noticeable except when it rained. He became the town's blacksmith, working iron into horseshoes and hinges and nails. Good, honest work. He married a girl from one of the families that had fled during the battle, came back after. They had 3 children. He told them stories about their grandfather, his and Maria's father, who'd stood against Calder's men. Told them about Elias Vorn, who'd taught him what courage looked like. Did you know him well? His oldest son asked once. No, only met him twice, once when he brought his horse to stable, once during the battle. But you talk about him like he was family. He was. Not by blood, but by choice, by the things that matter. Diego set down his hammer, wiped sweat from his face. He gave me something to believe in when I didn't have anything else. That makes him family. Word came occasionally from other territories. Ruth Carver had died fighting Pike, but her brothers had survived and eventually killed him. The territory was still lawless, but Pike's particular brand of cruelty was gone. A town called Silver Creek had stood against a land-grabbing railroad company. Lost, but fought hard enough that the company decided it wasn't worth the trouble. A group of farmers in the Panhandle had organized, refused to pay protection money to a gang. Half of them died, but the gang moved on to easier targets. Small victories, Pyrrhic victories, but victories nonetheless. And in each story, someone mentioned Copper Hollow, mentioned the town that had shown it was possible to fight back. Tommy heard these stories and felt something like pride, mixed with grief, mixed with the knowledge that Elias Vorn's death had rippled outward in ways none of them could have predicted. On the 15th anniversary of the battle, the town held a memorial. Everyone gathered at Elias's grave. Maria read a poem she'd written. Diego brought flowers. Mrs. Chen stood silent, eyes dry but grieving. A stranger appeared at the edge of the crowd, old, rail-thin, face weathered by too much sun and not enough food. It took Tommy a moment to recognize him. Cole Riker. The man looked like he'd aged 40 years instead of 15. His hair was white. His hands shook. His eyes were haunted by things that wouldn't let him sleep. The crowd noticed him, went quiet. Angry murmurs started. Diego's hand went to his gun. "Wait," Tommy said. "Just wait." Riker approached slowly, hands raised to show he was unarmed. He stopped well short of the grave, like he didn't deserve to get closer. "I know I'm not welcome," Riker said. His voice was a whisper. "I know what I did, what I am." "Then why are you here?" Maria's voice was cold. "Because 15 years ago, a man spared my life when he had every reason to kill me, and I've spent every day since then trying to understand why." "And?" Diego asked. "Did you figure it out?" "No, but I figured out something else." Riker looked at the grave, at the simple marker. "He was a better man than me, than I'll ever be. And he died proving it." "He didn't die proving anything," Mrs. Chen said. "He died saving people. There's a difference." "I know, that's what I'm trying to say." Riker's voice broke. "I came to pay my respects, to say I'm sorry. I know it doesn't matter. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I had to say it." The crowd waited. No one spoke. "I don't expect forgiveness," Riker continued. "Don't deserve it. But I want you all to know that he changed me. Not enough. Never enough. But some." "How?" Tommy asked. "I stopped running, stopped hiding, started using my real name again, Riker struggled with the words. "Started trying to be better, not good, never good, just less bad than I was." "And you think that matters?" Diego's hand was still on his gun. "You think trying to be less bad makes up for what you did?" "No. Nothing makes up for it. But maybe it means his choice wasn't wasted. Maybe it means something that the man he spared didn't spend the rest of his life being exactly what he'd been before." Maria looked at him for a long moment. "Did you have children? You said you did." Riker nodded. "2. Boy and a girl. And a said, 'Do they know what you did?' I told them 5 years ago. Couldn't carry it alone anymore." "And?" "And my daughter won't speak to me. Hasn't spoken to me since. My son," Riker's voice shook. "My son said he understood, said we all make mistakes, but I see it in his eyes, the disappointment, the shame." "Good," Maria said flatly. "You should be ashamed." "I am, every day, every minute." The crowd stirred. Some wanted him gone. Some wanted him dead. Some just wanted this whole uncomfortable scene to end. Tommy made the decision. "You can stay for the memorial," he said, "but you stand at the back, and when it's over, you leave, and you don't come back." "Thank you," Riker whispered. He stood at the very edge of the gathering. Didn't sing when they sang, didn't speak when others shared memories, just stood there, silent and broken, carrying a weight that would never get lighter. When the memorial ended, he approached Mrs. Chen. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I know you lost your husband to Calder's men. I rode with them for a while. Might have been there when—" "You weren't," Mrs. Chen said. "I checked. You were in another territory. Still, I rode with men who did things like that, made me complicit. Yes, it did. I can't make it right, but if there's anything—" "There's nothing you can do," Mrs. Chen said, "except live with it, which I think you're already doing." She walked away before he could respond. Riker stood alone in the fading light. Everyone had left except Tommy, who was waiting to make sure the man actually left. "He really did spare you?" Tommy asked. "He did. In that mine. Had a gun to my head. I begged him to do it, but he just lowered the gun and walked away." "Why do you think he did it?" "I've spent 15 years trying to answer that question." Riker looked at the grave one last time. "Best I can figure, he looked at me and saw what he was becoming, what revenge had made him, and he decided he didn't want to be that anymore." "You think that's it?" "I think he was tired. Tired of hating, tired of killing, tired of being defined by the worst thing that ever happened to him." Riker turned away from the grave. "I think he wanted to be free more than he wanted me dead, and the only way to be free was to let me live." "That's a hell of a lot more generous than I'd be," Tommy said. "Me too, which is why he was a better man than either of us." Riker mounted his horse, an old gelding that looked as tired as its rider, and left Copper Hollow. Tommy watched until he disappeared into the gathering darkness. He never came back. 20 years after the battle, Copper Hollow was a different place. The main street was paved, electric lights had been installed. A railroad spur connected the town to the wider world. Progress, they called it. Maria was old now, white-haired and bent. But she still taught, still told stories, still made sure every child knew about Elias Vorn and the choice he made. Diego's children were grown, had children of their own. The youngest granddaughter was named Sarah, after the woman Elias had lost. She had his same steel-gray eyes, though she'd never met him. Mrs. Chen had passed 5 years earlier, buried next to her husband on the same hill where Elias rested. She'd left the boarding house to Maria, who ran it when she wasn't teaching. Tommy was the last of the original defenders still alive. He'd stopped tending bar, let younger men do the heavy lifting, but he still came to the saloon every evening, still sat in his usual spot, still told stories to anyone who'd listen. One evening, a writer came through town. Young man from back east, collecting stories about the old frontier. He'd heard about Copper Hollow, about the battle, about the legend of Elias Vorn. "I'd like to write about it," the writer said. "Put it in a book. Make sure people remember." "People remember plenty," Tommy said. "Don't need a book for that. But the details will get lost, already are getting lost. I've heard 5 different versions of what happened. They can't all be true." "Sure they can. Truth's just whatever we agree to believe." "That's not how history works." "No?" Tommy smiled. "Then tell me how it works." The writer pulled out a notebook, consulted his notes. According to reports, Elias Vorn killed between 15 and 25 men in a single day. That true? "He killed some. Don't know the exact number. Does it matter?" "Of course it matters. Details matter." "Why?" The writer looked frustrated. "Because that's how we know what really happened. How we separate fact from fiction." Tommy poured himself a drink, offered one to the writer, who declined. "Let me tell you something about Elias Vorn," Tommy said. "He was a man, just a man. Not particularly tall, not particularly fast, got old and slow and tired like everyone else. But he was a gunfighter, a legend. He was a farmer who lost everything and spent 16 years hunting the men responsible. By the time he got here, he could barely walk. His hands shook. He was used up. Then how did he win? He didn't win. He made a choice. That's different." The writer scribbled notes. What choice? To be better than the men he was hunting, to save people instead of just killing them, to die for something instead of just living for revenge. And that's the story? That's what people remember? That's what they should remember. Tommy looked at the picture over the bar. Elias's face, stern and weathered. The exact number of men he killed doesn't matter. The fact that he chose mercy over revenge, that matters. But people want heroes. They want someone larger than life. Then they're looking for the wrong thing. Heroes are just people who make hard choices when it would be easier not to. Tommy finished his drink. Elias Vorn wasn't a hero because he killed a bunch of bad men. He was a hero because he refused to become one of them. The writer wrote this down. Can I quote you on that? Quote whoever you want. Just make sure you tell them the truth. Which is that revenge doesn't bring back the dead. That violence just breeds more violence. That the hardest thing in the world is choosing mercy when you've earned the right to hate. The writer nodded slowly. Did you know him well, Elias Vorn? No, just for a couple days, but those days changed everything. How? Tommy thought about it. About the battle, the blood, the fear. About watching Elias walk into certain death to buy time for people to escape. About the choice not to kill Riker, which had seemed like weakness at the time, but now felt like the strongest thing a man could do. He showed us we had a choice, Tommy said finally. We'd been living like we didn't. Like Calder and men like him were just forces of nature we had to endure. But Elias proved we could fight back, could choose how we lived and how we died. And people died for that choice. Yeah, they did. But they chose to die. That's the point. They weren't victims anymore. They were people making decisions about their own lives. The writer closed his notebook. I think I understand. Do you? I think so. The story isn't about the gunfight. It's about the choice not to fight. The mercy shown to Riker. It's about both. The fighting mattered, but what came after, that's what made it mean something. The writer thanked him and left. Tommy never saw the book that eventually got published. Didn't need to. The real story was here, in this town, in the people who'd lived it. On his deathbed, 30 years after the battle, Tommy called for Diego. The younger man came quick, brought his granddaughter Sarah with him. I'm dying, Tommy said, stating fact, not looking for sympathy. I know, Diego said. The doctor was here this morning. Don't trust doctors. They're always trying to make death comfortable. Death's not supposed to be comfortable. What do you need? Need you to keep the saloon running. Keep telling the stories. Don't let people forget. We won't forget. You will, though. Eventually. Your kids will. Their kids will. Tommy's breathing was labored. That's okay. Stories aren't meant to last forever, just long enough to teach the lesson. What lesson? Young Sarah asked. She was maybe 10, bright-eyed and curious. Tommy looked at her, saw the future of Copper Hollow in her face. That we're not powerless, he said. That we can choose. Even when the choice is hard, especially when the choice is hard. Is that what Mr. Vorn taught you? He taught me lots of things. But yeah, that was the main one. Tommy died that night, surrounded by people who'd loved him. They buried him on the hill next to Elias and Mrs. Chen and the others who'd fallen during the battle. The town continued, changed, evolved. The saloon became a restaurant, then a community center. The stories were still told, but less frequently. The details got fuzzy. Diego passed, then Maria, then their children. Generations turned over. The Battle of Copper Hollow became history, then legend, then myth. The writer's book was published and forgotten. A scholar found it 50 years later, wrote a dissertation. The dissertation sat in a library, unread. But the town remained, not as a monument to violence or revenge, but as a living testament to the idea that people could choose to be better than their circumstances. Cole Riker died alone in a boarding house in Nevada, 83 years old. His children didn't come to the funeral. He was buried in an unmarked grave, which felt appropriate. He'd spent his life trying to disappear. His son found a letter afterward, addressed to him, written in shaking handwriting. It said, I was a monster who was shown mercy. I didn't deserve it, still don't, but I tried to earn it anyway. I hope that counts for something. I hope I was less bad than I was before. Love, Dad. The son kept the letter, never showed it to anyone. But sometimes, late at night, he'd take it out and read it and wonder what mercy looked like, what it cost, what it was worth. He never found an answer that satisfied him. 75 years after the battle, the last person who'd been alive during it passed away. A woman who'd been a baby, evacuated with her family. She didn't remember anything firsthand, but her mother had told her stories. Before she died, she gave an interview to a local newspaper. What do you remember? The reporter asked. Just images. My mother crying, the smell of smoke, riding in a wagon at night. Do you know why your family left? Because a man named Elias Vorn bought them time, gave them a chance to escape. Do you consider him a hero? The old woman thought about it. I consider him a man who made a choice, the right choice. That's rarer than heroism. The interview was published. A few people read it, most didn't, but the story persisted, changed shape, changed details, but persisted. 100 years after the battle, Copper Hollow was a small city. The hill where Elias was buried had become a park. The original markers were gone, replaced by a monument listing all the defenders who'd fallen. Elias Vorn's name was first, not because he'd killed the most men or fought the hardest, but because he'd started it, because his choice to spare Cole Riker had become the defining moment of the entire story. School children visited the monument on field trips, heard the abbreviated version, simplified, sanitized, made appropriate for young ears. But some teachers told the fuller story, about revenge and mercy, about the cost of violence, about choosing who you wanted to be when the fighting stopped. And in those classrooms, occasionally, a child would ask the important question, if he came all that way to kill Riker, why didn't he? And the teacher would answer, because he realized that living with hate had cost him 16 years, and he didn't want to give it one more second. Did it make him happy, letting Riker live? I don't know if it made him happy, but I think it made him free. That was the lesson that mattered. That was the story that needed telling. Not the violence, not the bloodshed, not even the sacrifice, but the choice, the hard choice, the choice to be better, the choice that Elias Vorn made on a hillside in the dark, with a gun in his hand and revenge within reach, the choice to lower the weapon, to walk away, to live the last hours of his life as something other than a killer. That was the legacy. Not perfect, not clean, not easy, but real. And in a world that often felt short on reality, that counted for everything. The sun set over Copper Hollow like it had set for 100 years, like it would set for 100 more. The streets were clean, the people were free, and on a hill overlooking it all, beneath a monument and forgotten stones, Elias Vorn rested. His war finally over. His choice finally understood. His name spoken by strangers who would never know him, but who carried forward the thing that mattered most. The knowledge that even in darkness, even in pain, even when every reason said otherwise, we can still choose mercy. We can still choose hope. We can still choose to be better than our worst moments. And that choice, that simple, impossible, beautiful choice, changes everything. Not all at once, not perfectly, but enough. Always enough.